Okay, hello everyone. I'm going to go ahead and start this Zoom program. Perhaps others will be joining us later. My name is Jane Ingram Allen, and I was selected this year as an artist in residence for the City of Sacramento's new Artist in Residency program. And I'm doing an art project at Sojourner Truth Community Garden in District 7, and that's located on Gloria Drive in the Pocket Greenhaven area of Sacramento. And because of the virus, we've had to postpone the project, and we have decided now to go ahead and do it this year. And I am doing these Zoom programs instead of being there in the community, involving the people directly. So I hope these Zoom programs will give you a chance to at least see how the paper making for this project is done and how the project will be made. I will go to Sacramento on in late November, and the installation will be on Saturday, November 21st, with a public ceremony to lay down the living quilt for Sojourner Truth. This will be at the Sojourner Truth Community Garden, and the ceremony will be at 2 p.m. on November 21st. And I hope you can come out to that.
You're asking if they can see your picture.
Can you see me on the computer?
No,
No. Okay.
only in tiny. You're just a tiny little.
Oh, you don't see me. Okay, let me check that again. I'm going to stop the video. Now I'm going to try to ask to start video. Yeah. And then I'm going to
pin mine.
Doesn't seem to unpin. Is it pinned?
No.
I don't see my.
I can see you.
You can see me. Okay, good.
Yeah, I can. I can.
I guess we're okay. All right.
Could be her.
I can't see you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, we're going to start. The second program is to show you how the paper pulp is prepared. And also I'm going to show you how to make the stencils for the design of the quilt I'm using, and some other things today. I'm going to start by saying that, we do have time for discussion and questions and answers at the end of this program today. And you can put any questions you want to ask me in the chat room, or just be available then to ask your questions in person or give any comments that you want to do. We are recording this, and we'll make it available to the public online after the program today. Probably put it up sometime this weekend. Okay, so I'm going to start this demonstration part of how to prepare the pulp. I'm doing this project with a handmade paper quilt that will have seeds for wildflowers in it. And I'm using this pulp here that is available from paper making suppliers. I order it from Carriage House Paper, which is in Brooklyn. And that website is carriagehousepaper.com. And abaca is a plant that is mainly grown in the Philippines as a fiber plant. It's called Musa textilis, and it's a type of banana plant, but it's a banana that doesn't have any fruit. I've also used other banana leaves to make paper, but abaca or Musa textilis is a very good plant for paper making. And the way you prepare it, it comes in these really tough sheets that you can't even tear without first getting it wet. So I'm just going to put this in the bucket of water here. And you can see once it gets wet, it's a little bit easier to tear. Probably need to get it wetter. And what I do is tear this up. You can also do this with recycled paper if you want to. And you just tear it into chunks that are about 2 inches or so. And you can soak it in the water overnight or just a few minutes. And then I'm going to use the blender to turn it into pulp. First, I'm just going to fill this blender about 3/4 of the way full with clear water. Then I'm going to put a handful of this soaked pulp into the blender. Put the lid on it tightly and then turn it on. And to make paper, you want to use a blender that will crush ice. So, make sure your blender has a strong enough motor that it can crush ice. If it can crush ice, it can also make paper pulp. So I'm going to turn this on and count to 30. I usually do it for about 30 seconds. Okay. Now I'm going to take it off the blender and just pour it in a bucket here. And another thing, about the blender, I use the osterizer. It's a really good blender for paper making because all the electric parts are enclosed. So you're using water with electricity. You don't want water getting into the electrical parts. And it seems to be a good one. It's not expensive either. And I get a plastic container here. All right, so that's the Abaca pulp that you can order from the paper making suppliers. And I also use another pulp in this project. It's blue jean pulp. And this is pulp that's actually made in the paper making factory with a big machine, and they collect old blue jeans, which are 100% cotton, and cut the fabric up and put it in a big machine to beat it into a pulp and then compress it into sheets that you can buy also from Carriage House Paper. And for this pulp, you also, soak it in a bucket, get it wet, and then it's fairly easy to tear. Cotton is, another plant fiber that we use for fabric as well as for paper making. And so I'm just going to also use the blender to mix up a little of the blue jean pulp so you can see how it looks. And this is what I'm using for the blue color of my quilt that I'm doing for Sojourner Truth. So I'm going to put a handful of this soaked blue jean pulp, which is 100% cotton. The blue jean pulp is a little tougher. You can hear it struggling a little bit. Every once in a while, check your blender to make sure it's not getting too hot. And, you could also take out a little pulp and put in more water if you wanted to, so it would blend easily. And I'm just going to pour this pulp also in a bucket here. You know, you never have enough buckets when you start making handmade paper. And I get these buckets at the dollar store, usually. You can find them. They're just, you know, plastic buckets. And so that's how you make the pulp. And the white pulp, um, I'm going to show you next time how to color it. And I use a fiber reactive dye to color it. And that's how I make the red pulp. I already have a little bit left here. And the yellow pulp that I use in the quilt design. Okay, so I'm going to show you the coloring next time. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about the design of this quilt. This is the sketch I made, the sort of the plan for the living quilt for Sojourner Truth. And each of these colors of pulp that I'm using will have seeds for wildflowers that will give flowers in that same color. And this is one of the squares I've made. You can see the seeds in there. Next time I'm also going to talk more about each of the different wildflower seeds that I'm using in this project. But you can see this is a design that's a traditional quilt pattern. It's called the North Star quilt pattern. And I decided to use that pattern, first of all, because I think it's a beautiful pattern. I like the way it looks and the colors it has. And also because you may know that Sojourner Truth was a former slave and a famous abolitionist, as well as a spokesperson for women's suffrage. And I wanted to honor her legacy. The community garden there in the Pocket Greenhaven area is named after her. So I thought it would be really good to use this North Star pattern. And there's a story that some historians believe and some don't, that quilts were used during the time of the Underground Railroad to give escaping slaves some direction. And the North Star was one of those quilts that was used because, you know, traditionally the North Star has been used to navigate at night. And they would put out the North Star quilt to indicate the direction north to freedom for the escaping slaves. So I'm using this pattern, and this is just a sketch of it in construction paper so you can, you know, clearly see the design. And to make this in the handmade paper with the different colors of seeds, I have to have 4 tubs, and you can see those here. This is the white, the red, yellow, and blue. And each of those tubs has seeds for that color of wildflower in it. And to make the design, I use stencils. And it's sort of like if you've ever done silk screen, you would understand that, or anything with stencils. And I use this material, it's called buttercut. It's a kind of a rubbery material. It's fairly thin, and it has a sticky backing on it. Now, this part of it's sticky, so you can peel that away. It's like contact paper, but it's thicker than contact paper. And I order that also from the paper making suppliers. I get it from Carriage House Paper at carriageHousepaper.com. And so what I'm going to do for the demonstration today, I'm going to show you how to make just a star pattern on this small screen here. And so I've taken the piece of buttercut material and I traced a star on it. And now I'm going to cut it out. And since, okay, so I'm just going to cut around this quickly. And then, you know, when you're using a stencil method, you need to remember that, you know, what's going to come out as the paper is the negative or the empty space. So if I want this star to be blue, then I would dip it into the blue pulp. So I'm going to stick this onto the, and you have to have the screen dry when you do this. It won't stick very well if the screen is already wet. So I'm just peeling the rest of this paper off. And then I turn it over and make sure it's really stuck to it well. And these stencils will come off. And so you can use your screen again or do a different design. But this is just to give you the idea of how and I'll just show you how it works by dipping it into the pulp. I'm going to put it on this piece of interfacing when I make the star piece of paper. So I'll just make a blue star. So you get the screen wet first, just in clear water. Then you dip it in here, shake it a bit. You can see some of the big seeds there. Turn it over, use a sponge to press it a bit and get some of the water out. And here you can see the handmade paper, just one blue star. And you know, you could make more of those, or you can make, you know, something as a background and then the blue star on top of it. And I'm thinking I may use this star in the quilt design for the borders. You can see in this plan, I just have plain white borders, but I thought it might be neat to have a star, at least in each of the corners. So I'll need to make the borders as well as all of the squares. This quilt is going to be 8 feet by 10 feet. So I'm going to make 20 squares. There'll be 4 across and 5 down. So I'm making 20 of these here. And they'll be put together and installed on Saturday, November 21st at 2 p.m. Okay. Okay, the other thing I wanted to show you today is how to make another sort of secret ingredient that I use. It's formation aid. And to do that, I'm just going to fill the blender with water. There's a lot of blue pulp still in it. Just going to do it about half full. And then I'm going to take out this center part of the blender and put it on there. And formation aid, I also order from the suppliers. And what it does is it makes it possible to do very thin paper, but make it very strong, because you can go in and do it multiple times. So this is formation aid. It's a white powder. And it also comes from plants. I'm going to turn this on to a very slow speed and then just sprinkle it in there. hear the difference in the sound. As soon as it starts making that sound, it's thickening. And people always ask, what does formation aid do? It's a very slimy liquid, and the vegetable that we know that has this same property, and I've actually used it in some places when I didn't bring the powdered formation aid with me, is okra. And okra, if you cook it, you get this kind of green slime that's the same as this. And so you put a little of this formation aid in the tub. I'm just going to put some of the white pulp here that we mixed up in the blender. That's the abaca pulp. And the formation aid makes the mixture much smoother and makes it drain slowly and makes it possible to do multiple dips in the vat. So I'm going to make just a white piece here. And this is sort of the modified Asian way of making paper. You sort of move slowly, rocking it back and forth. And this is the second dip. And I'm going to move back and forth this way. And then the third dip, this way. And if you mess up, which I did there, because I was getting too fast, you just kiss it off. Smack it on the top of the water, stir it back into the pulp. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is show you how you do it in layers to make the quilt pattern. So that's the white background. And then I'm going to use this one again and make the blue star. So it's a layering method to make the quilt squares and the North Star pattern. And then after I've made the paper, I take it and just hang it on the clothesline to dry. And it doesn't come off until you get it dry, and then you can peel it off. This is a square I made yesterday. So it's dry. And you can see it peels off easily. And then you use the piece of non-woven interfacing again for the next one. So I'll be making 20 of these, and next week I'll show you how to use the stencils that I made, just like this is the white one, this is the blue one. This is the yellow one, this is the red one, okay? So that's all I'm gonna show you today about this project. And now I want to ask if you have any questions, and I'll turn this video off, and turn on my video. So hopefully you can see me now.
Yes,
And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those questions.
I do.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Elleraine.
Hi, Ellery. Good to see you.
You too. Yeah, you mentioned you used some interwoven. I didn't catch it. Some kind of interwoven sheet that you put your wet sheets down on. What was that?
It's non-woven interfacing.
Non-woven. So you get it at
And
a
you get it at Joann Fabrics. That's where I usually get it. It's in,
okay.
just about every community.
Yeah, we have that.
And I use the one that's not got an iron-on finish. Then
No
you can
iron.
use both sides of it for your paper making.
Okay.
And I get about a medium weight. It depends on how thick a paper you want to make,
Okay.
but the medium weight um, does well. And you can use it over and over again. Eventually, it wears out, gets holes in it or tears.
Yeah.
But I've used it, for many different projects. And I first saw them using this in the Philippines when I was there on a residency. And I think it's a really good thing to put the newly formed sheet of paper on.
I'm delighted to hear about this because I use thick plastic sheets and they dry right on the sheet. But they are heavy and I already have them, but I'd like to try this. I'm going to try.
Yeah, it's neat that you can see there's another one hanging over here on the clothesline. I'll get it and show you. The stars that I made are not going to be dry probably till in the morning.
Uh-huh.
But I made these yesterday, and it's always easy to get it off the.
Yeah.
You just start it on one corner and then it peels off easily.
I think it
And
dries a lot faster than the plastic
mhm.
that I'm using.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to
Yeah,
do your handmade paper.
I'm going to try it.
And so, the next week I'll show you how I do the coloring of the pulp. I don't know if you've done any coloring of pulp.
Yeah, I
And
do.
and I use a fiber reactive dye instead of pigment because it's non-toxic, doesn't harm the environment. This piece I'm trying to use all natural biodegradable materials so that it can all just change over time and go back to nature and come
I'm
back as a living, blooming
yeah.
wildflower garden.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I can't make it next week. I have another obligation. So
Okay, I'm going to record and post all of the programs online so people can watch them anytime because it is hard to, you know, get to these specific times. I've tried to make it simple by doing it every Wednesday at 2 o'clock. And I'd like to thank my husband, Tim Allen. He's doing the video and trying to help me with all of this. It's a learning process, learning all about how
oh,
to do
I'm
Zoom
having
programs.
trouble even getting on. It's just it took me several attempts, but I finally got there.
Oh, good.
I can't always manage it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure other people will be joining and coming in to watch them online later. Uh,
Uh-huh.
but
Okay.
it's a way of sharing what you're doing with the community when you can't actually be there in person.
That's wonderful. Thank you for doing it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Okay, is there any other question?
I do have a couple of questions.
Okay. Um,
Um, is there a reason why you didn't use the water from the blender when you moved the pulp over?
uh, I did use the water from the blender. I just poured the whole thing, the water and everything. In.
Oh, I meant like from the bucket. You know how you drenched the pulp in the bucket and then you poured like fresh water into the blender?
Oh yeah, it just takes a lot of water to, have enough water that it'll blend easily.
And are there certain measurements like
Um, Well, you kind of go by the sound that your blender is making. You know, if you have really tough pulp, you might
Okay.
need to use more water and less pulp. And, you know, if it's something like the abaca or the cotton, I just fill it about 3/4 full with water and then put a handful of the soaked pulp in the blender.
Okay.
The proportion and the amount of time you blend it is sort of variable. And if you want really smooth paper, you might blend it for a longer period of time. You know, let it stay for more than 30 seconds.
Okay. And then,
And then, you know, the amount of pulp you put in your tub um, also is variable. This one that I made the white with, I don't have very much because I want to keep the background really thin
okay.
quilt. And then, you know, the amount of pulp in the blue might be a little bit more because, you know, I want it to really stand out, as you can see in the design.
And then does it matter the amount of seeds you put into the bins?
Yeah, it could be too many seeds. I put a lot, and
Okay.
I like the texture of the seeds too.
Yeah.
And you know, when you see it starting to come up and sprout, they say you can thin it, you know, where they get about 4 to 6 inches tall if you want to. I have not done that in these living quilt projects because wildflowers kind of do their own thing naturally. And the ones that, you know, don't make it, don't grow up and flower and reproduce. But I suppose you could get too many seeds or too few. And of course, some of the seeds may not sprout. Um, I get the seeds from a wildflower seed supplier, and I'll tell you more about, you know, each of the different colors of wildflowers that I'm using next week,
Okay.
and where you can order wildflower seeds. Okay. So is there any other question right now? I think we're about to the end of our time. You know, these Zoom programs have a time limit um, for 30 or 40 minutes, but I can answer another question if anybody has any other question.
Oh, well, I have, since I might not make it next week, what is the supplier, the wild seed supplier
For
that
the
you use?
seeds,
Yeah.
okay. Um, I use a company called American Meadows, and this is one of the packs of seeds. These are red poppies that I'm using in the red color of the quilt, and that's American Meadows at americanmeadows.com. And this company is really nice to work with. They like what I'm doing, and actually, they donated half the cost of all the seeds that I'm using in this project. So
Wonderful.
I, you know, really encourage you to use this wildflower seed company. It's in Vermont,
Thank
but
you.
they ship all over the world, and they have seeds for each area, each. You know, they have native blends as well as, you know, blends for butterflies and hummingbirds.
Wonderful.
So it's a really good company for wildflower seeds.
Okay.
Okay, does anyone else have a question? If not, I guess we will sign off, and I'd like to invite you to come next Wednesday at 2 for another Zoom program about the making of the living quilt for Sojourner Truth at Sojourner Truth Community Garden in Sacramento. And this is, you know, of course, sponsored by the city of Sacramento and their artist in residency program. So thank you, everyone, and goodbye until next week.
Thank you,
Thank
Jane.
you.
Thank you.